welcome to Casual Chat Live. I am Brian Germain, and if you're wondering why I've got a visitor sticker on, it's because I've been volunteering at the school, taking kids out into nature with Laura, so pushing their fear boundaries back, starting, I think, at an early age is very important. Now, today, we have a very special guest with us, who's coming to us from Denmark. And of course, his accent will probably throw you because he's got a British accent. But James Doyle is a CEO of a company called Jamso, and he's got a whole lot of really interesting perspective on the business aspect of transcending fear, and has some really good questions. I'm really looking forward to this interview. So without further ado, welcome, James. So okay, well, we're green. So what did you want to get into today?
Yeah, I mean, obviously what I want to go through, the company I have, it's not a massive company. It's similar to yourself, self-standy, as we would say in Danish, a self-employed business, consultant predominantly to small companies. Yeah, that's the key match. In addition to that, I've really got three elements. One is about goal setting. The other one is about metrics, so that's the data side. And then we've got about gamification. So this is about the motivation, making some fun out of using game theory and the mechanics of that into both applying better analytics, and also making sure that there's, if you're familiar with something as basic as like smart goal setting systems, people just follow a process and there's less motivation within it. So to try and gamify that, or to try and incentivize the system so employees become more engaged. And that's pretty much, there's enough research out there to show that that's a crying need. And so one of the things that I wanted specifically out from this was, we both have a passion for a few things really that I felt would be a real big, for me, a big interest, but also a huge crossover. Yeah. And the areas that I'm looking at really is your book about transcending fear. It's a massive message to massive organizations, plus people who are thinking about starting a business, plus people who are looking at change. So that's a very all-encompassing unit. We've both got a passion for outdoors, both got a passion for skydiving. And, you know, I know you more than what you know me, because I've been watching your videos, I've been listening to you on the podcast. I think that's a guy that can really offer a lot of interest, a lot of value out there, and basically in the hope that that content can give something out to my market, and hopefully then that'll attract for you to get a phone call for a meeting, for a presentation, a keynote, or whatever else. Who knows what that could be. Sure. That's the intent. That's really the crux of it. And you know, so I wanted to kind of focus in many ways with the concept of transcending fear. What is it? Some of the science and your research that you've done behind that, because that's quite a specialist gift that you have, that you can offer some insights there that I think an entrepreneur or a manager, or as we'll see, technology's changing, where you've got digitization of employment. How are people going to get over those fears of change? How can they embrace that? And how do they recognize that what they think is frustration or resistance is actually a fear, right? And so that's the thought process. I don't know if you feel that that's a good match.
Of course. Yes, of course. Yeah, it's amazing how fear manages to pop its ugly head into so many different things and disguise itself so effectively. You know, I mean, anger in particular, as you say, frustration, but you know, it's grander forms, it's louder forms. That it seems to me that fear shows its mark uh, if you strip away all of the illusions that it creates around itself, the ego doesn't want to admit that it's afraid. No, nobody ever wants to admit it. Um, is that there isn't change.
Yeah.
That's the indicator, right? If you have a topic where there is some sort of risk, whether it is perceptual, right, internal, or some tangible thing, I could get hurt, I could lose money, I could lose my career, I could lose my relationship. All of these things are real. I mean, even the stuff that's just internal, even if it's just a higher heart rate that creates a physical discomfort in the body, right? Either way, it's something that creates an aversion, which means that you're not going to be making change. And if you're not making change in that area, you're not making improvement.
Right.
You're not making an increase in safety or an expansion of your earning power, or the expansion of your business, anything that you're experiencing some sort of fear in. That's the hallmark, isn't it? And so for me, the important message to start off with is that transcending fear does not mean being without fear. I don't know anybody, short of surgery on your amygdala, um, a brain surgery, is going to allow you to experience that reality of zero fear.
Yeah.
And I've said it many times in many different ways that the brave people are simply folks that are not afraid of being afraid. In the same way that fit people are people who are not afraid of feeling the physical discomfort of exercise.
And I think that for me, that's the interesting part, because fear and motivation, in many ways, they're almost running parallel, right? It's how the person reacts to the challenge.
Sure.
It can be a motivator, or it can turn into an anxiety or a fear reaction.
Yep.
What's the characteristics from your perspective that differentiates that?
Yeah, well, of course, our history, right? Our life history and the habits that we create as a result create these just natural tendencies. When you receive the physical discomfort of fear, do you shy away from it and then create an environment where you don't have to confront that specific thing, right?
Yep.
Which is the most common response to any challenge, is to avoid the challenge.
Yeah.
And from there, I think it's important to expand beyond to say, well, what am I choosing? Right? So I have this experience of the aversion. I have the experience of the negative physiological aspects and the cognitive aspects that it suggests in terms of thought and action.
Yeah.
So then what? Right? And there has to be a game plan. And I think that's one of the biggest differences, is those that have finally taken a closer look on a grander scale. What does fear do to me? Is it good or is it bad, really?
Yeah.
Right? Is it really actually somehow helping? Is it beneficial? Or is it something that I just need to immediately have an instinct of distaste for the emotion, not self-hatred, not embarrassment, forgiveness for what I'm naturally feeling. This is just being alive. Sometimes we get freaked out. But if you have a game plan for that experience and have a trigger thought, I'm going to take a deep breath and calm myself down and reappraise my initial conclusion.
Right. So you're saying you can identify through things like procrastination.
Yep.
Is the avoidance process. So if you've got as a business person, as a budding entrepreneur, as a person who wants to do something, that's always on the bucket list, the whatever list, yeah? And it doesn't quite ever get there. It doesn't ever quite become an event, or there's an excuse because something else is more important. So you're saying does journaling help there? What kind of
movement?
what kind of systems would you suggest that someone could analyze and review and say, well, okay, this is how I'm reacting, but also maybe as a leader, as a manager, how can you share to other people and say, okay, how are you reacting to this new technology, to a new change, or to a new skill, or whatever it is. These are the key elements to consider. How would you suggest that someone should go about that?
Well, I think journaling is a great idea, but now, of course, we've got many different forms of journaling, right? You can do a video log a video blog that nobody ever sees, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can have a voice recorder that you just chat as you're in traffic or whatever. Scribbling on a piece of paper is not the only way to journal. And some people relate very well to having a pen in their hand and the tactile experience of that. Great, that's fine, but don't judge yourself. And one of the other things that we have to consider is that we often will need a mirror, another human being that is going to be non-judgmental because of initial rules set up with this conversation. We're not going to be assigning value one way or another. We're not going to have what we call in my business therapeutic aggression, where we have an opinion that we're going to force upon others. We're just going to listen to each other and try to hold up a mirror and then say, well, here's what I hear. Yeah, here's what I'm hearing from you. Oftentimes we've been justifying bullshitting ourselves basically about why we're procrastinating, why we're in a stagnation mode. And it's very obvious to anybody that's listening, but it's a story that we've brainwashed ourselves with over and over and over through these repeated thoughts that I can't because of this, and I can't because of this, right? And we find ourselves stuck, full circle, thinking ourselves into the same situation that we're in. So to have that mirror of another human being, it doesn't have to be a professional. It has to be somebody that loves us. That'd do.
Is there, if you look at like quality improvement systems, so you got Deming and other greats out there. If you look at Plan, Do, Check, Act as a wheel of a process of improvement, as a process of performing and doing, one of the points is, you've touched on it, the cognitive biases of a person to, as opposed to having the mirror, which is the critical thinking skills that are required to use the two, right? To say, okay, are these thoughts and opinions I have, how much based on fact and reality really are they? And so by encouraging to do more research to challenge, I guess, the opinion and the thoughts, they could well be validated. But equally, there could well be some opportunities and say, well, actually, okay, I was scared, so now let's get on with it. No more excuses.
Yeah, absolutely. Objectivity, I think, is the only place that sanity can find its way back into the egoic consciousness.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the I, the self, the vulnerable that can experience fear, right? The version of me that is bare attention of the world, that is not vulnerable in terms of ego blows and in the self-hatred that comes as a result of failure and all that stuff comes from me. And when I step out and above that, and I just observe the world without judgment of myself, then I'm able to really begin this process of transcending fear in a much more powerful way than my ego ever could. And so I think we have to take a look at, at where the fear is coming from and whether it's valid, right? Because there may be a reason why we're actually afraid that requires change, right? My gut is telling me that I'm sitting by the door of an airplane getting ready to jump out and I've forgotten something, right? I forgot my parachute, or I forgot to put my goggles on, or my seatbelt's still attached to the aircraft. If my gut is talking to me in these sublimative sort of ways where there is an physiological emotional response that's occurring, that is my unconscious awareness speaking in the only way that it can, which is through my body. Something needs to change. Something's off. I got to solve this problem. That's fine. That's great. And that's, to me, that is not fear, though. That's a different kind of fear. To me, that's caution. That's body wisdom. There's a lot of different possible names, but when it really becomes the problematic fear is when it's this on and on repeating process that I'm self-traumatizing, right? Where I'm
Yeah.
self-inducing this paralysis through these broken record repeating thought patterns that are not serving me anymore.
Yeah. How do you identify the difference between anxiety and fear? In from your perspective,
I don't make a
what
difference.
you don't? Okay,
To me, it's
perfect.
a scale. To me, it's a scale.
Right.
So in the highest level, you have a heart attack. You have screaming in panic. You have locking up and not being able to physically move when the building is on fire. That sort of thing. And on the bottom end, I barely even notice it. Maybe I don't even notice that my behavior patterns have been changing. It's other people who know me, who are in the room with me, they know that I'm exuding anxiety, right?
Right.
They feel that they notice my speech is faster, that
Yep.
maybe the tone in my voice is different. The tells, as you would say in poker or something, right? My tells are probably, in most people, are not obvious to me. And so to me, that's the lowest level of anxiety. And this scale is, there's big differences in how it feels, but to me, it's part of the same system of my amygdala stoking the fire of the energy in my body, leading me to the fight, flight, or freeze responses.
Right. Okay. So again, that's something that everyone can connect to since they've been 6 months old, through to,
Or
you know,
possibly in utero, right?
yes, yeah, all the way through our lives. There's no question about that. And that applies in business. It applies to decisions. So again, you've referred earlier to saying, okay, you need to have a mirror there to help identify those points. You're also saying accountability from your colleagues, from your work friends, to say, hey, I've noticed you're reacting this way. You're a little bit quieter there. Is there something more we need to discuss here?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a summary of what you're saying? Are there other key elements that are equally important to identify and look for?
Well, self-awareness. I think that it's an awfully large topic because most of us are not as aware of ourselves as we believe we are. we all think that we're sentient in every possible way, and yet, we've got toilet paper hanging off of our shoe. In so many different ways, we have things about us that others can see that we can't see. So I think it's important to always be able to step out of the momentum of our thoughts, where we lose ourselves in the plot, in the role that we play, or at least the role that we believe that we're playing, which is not always congruent, and be able to create the space, a moment where we stop and reappraise and ask good questions. And I think that's one of the most important things in self-awareness, is to ask ourselves good questions. What is my real motivation? What really is driving me? What am I afraid of? And what do I want?
Yeah.
And beyond this, when I say, what do I want, beyond ego, right? What does my organization need and want, right? I mean, to me, want is two different, there's lower levels and higher levels of want. I want some ice cream, but I need to make more money. We all do, right? We all need to grow, to give our dreams room to expand. We need financing, and we can, right? And that's great.
And it's also interesting. One of the key things that I try to also share is your own goals. They may be apparently very different than the organization's goals. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
However, by helping the organization hit theirs, that might secure your next year's pay rise, which helps you towards your goal. By encouraging and embracing some form of technological change, that might well improve a skill set which broadens your scope on the job market. So it's also about adapting a potentially perilous anxiety, fear situation and say, okay, from this situation, how can this be a win-win? How can the organization win? How can I win? Sometimes, let's face it, there's some short-term pain in, and there is no benefit for the individual. That's also part of the game. That's part of a reality, right? And you can just notch that one in the chalkboard of wisdom and experience. Going right back to the book, if you don't mind, because I think we've got a good grasp of some of the process steps, which is fantastic. Both in life and in business. I think we've been able to cover that quite well for anybody who will be reading this and hearing this. What about going back to the 3 factors? And I'm reading off from here. You're off from some of your writings about the sociological, the psychological, and physiological elements.
Sure.
Briefly. Although there's a whole book's worth, plus another book's worth that never made it in the book.
Always. More than one. Yeah.
Exactly, right. What factors do you find are, first of all, maybe most common?
Yeah.
But secondly, let's say the hardest to change, or amongst the hardest to change, and therefore what may need to be managed? Because you're the expert. I don't know if you can ever totally conquer all fears, but maybe there's a management of them. Yeah. And I mean, my personal experience is I'm petrified of snakes. But when I'm in nature, I realize I hate the idea of snakes, but I'm kind of curious when I see them, right? And I'll keep a very respectful distance from them.
Yeah. For now. Well, and I think you're onto something great here, because you don't necessarily need to be a snake lover. No. But perhaps you can be a snake appreciator to see the beauty in another one of these natural creatures that's managed to survive quite a bit longer than humanity, right? Yes. Yeah. So you can appreciate how their means of motility and their means of acquiring food and all this stuff, and how do they stay alive in the winter and all that. Yeah. But is it necessary to make what we are most afraid of something that we have the greatest affinity for? Not necessarily, but we need to warm up to it so that we can examine the validity of our fears. To be afraid of all snakes is not sane, because most snakes are not poisonous.
You're right.
Right? To be concerned about an actual, furulence or some sort of, snake that has toxic venom that if he gets you, he's going to kill you. That is a very different story. But if you're afraid of the pattern recognition program of a rubber snake that catches the corner of your eye and you have the same, well, that's not completely sane, is it? And so to upgrade off of the initial software that was given to us in the operating system of our computer, right? What are the pattern recognition programs of arachnids, right? Of spiders, of all these other things, of eye contact. There's a lot of things that human beings are given in our basic software package that were sculpted through evolution, sculpted through a genetic hand-me-down process that may or may not be sane or rational, but they made sense when that genetic structure and that mimetic structure that somehow gets passed down was put in the program, in the same way that the memes of our society and the assumptions of our culture create fears, right? The face value assumptions that we make about someone next to us on a train based on what they look like, whether it causes a warmth or an aversion or a downright fear or a downright move to the next train car behavior pattern, where we could be moving away from an opportunity.
Right. So it's basically know your fear.
Know your fear. Examine your fear. Get close enough to it without rushing straight towards the edge of the cliff, because there is real danger in this world. Yeah. Right? That's the trick.
If we look to those 3 elements, the sociological, the physiological, and the psychological, what are the 3 within those three areas that influence fear, what steps would you say people should be looking to either manage or identify? What's the key messages that you can share on those three?
It all begins with physiological, doesn't it? Right? I mean, we assign these circumstances, whether it's a sociological thing, right? A reason where we expect to become afraid due to a programming process through the telly, right? Through watching movies, from all of this stuff where we are just stimulus and response. We're, single cell organism behavior patterns or something else. Either way, it's a physical response. And if we get carried away with the physical response, then we close down our options cognitively. Our ability to re-examine the validity of something or the beneficiality of something gets eclipsed by the intense emotion. And so I think step one is always to do the things that de-escalate the emotion a little bit. And, from that place of taking the deep breath and letting out slowly, slowing down. I think that's the biggest message of all. Slowing down, not just the breath, but the thought process, the actions, so that you have a little bit of slack in the system. It's reducing the RPM so that you can choose to change gears. Right?
From a business perspective, could that be done in a way of you can never communicate enough? Just when you think you've communicated, do it again, right? Yeah. Is that also part of this? Is that by, again, going back over again, it allows the cognitive process, it allows people at their own pace, because everyone's slightly different, to understand what they are in fear of better, so that they can understand their own reaction to it, and then maybe start to make some judgments on the other behaviors around them. To say, well, actually, okay, well, Bob over there and Sheila over there, they seem to be maybe not so bothered, so maybe I ought not to be as well. Is that something that you can relate to? Is that also true?
I think the social aspects, it's extremely important because it can bump up our physical response, can it? Right?
Yeah.
The trouble is we're not all the same. Right? In the way that we process adrenaline, the way that we process the world, some people are a lot cooler just naturally. And others are very excitable. And the ones who prefer a cool environment are really annoyed by the people who tend to be excitable. And yet the truth is often handed to the social environment through the one person who is the canary in the coal mine, the loud responder who has a physical response that is so intense that their voice gets louder. They get intense on the situation and on other people. And then you have this dichotomy of roles that keeps playing itself out, don't we? Where we have the angry alarmist, and then the other person who invalidates anything they say because of the package in which the information was passed on.
Right.
You're ruining my buzz. I was having a nice coffee and you're freaking out about something. And the truth is what they're freaking out about might be a really big deal.
Right.
And to invalidate that is going to create a weak point in the information gathering system that is an organization. And so I think that it's very important to honor and respect those who are connected to their bodies in a way where the emotion bubbles up like a volcano exploding. And that group of people need to notice within themselves how they're doing it and temper their temper. Right? So there's a meeting at the middle.
We've all seen those.
You know what I mean? There's a meeting in the middle where the people who tend to be physically hotter take the deep breath and calm down and consider that the other person's emotional response to the way that they're passing on the information matters in terms of the effectiveness of their passing on of information, right? What you're freaked out about, what you're angry about or afraid about might be valid, but if you don't create the behavioral change that you're looking for to create a greater level of safety or the improvement that's necessary, well, what's the point of saying anything at all? You might as well just lock yourself in the bathroom and scream.
Yeah.
Right? Which might be the best choice sometimes to, to go out into nature and scream at the top of your lungs and calm down and get the emotional edge off, and then come back into the situation with skillful means. Right? It's one of the most important things I've ever heard, the idea of being able to pass on information with skillful means so that you're not flaring up the other's egos, so that you're not flaring up their pattern recognition programs of, when in doubt, ignore the screaming person. Because screaming is against the rules, right? Emotion is against the rules. Well, that's not sane either. That's not leading us towards the most of, so this is high level, high intensity emotional intelligence that we're talking about here. And it's roles that we play, the top, the top working its way down and the bottom working its way up, so we can meet in the middle and create a teamwork framework.
Yep.
That is exciting and fun, and we're playing different roles, right? Some people are rowing the boat and others are standing up on top of the crow's nest deciding where to row and barking, the cadence. We all have our roles to play at each different moment. We may be reversing roles, but to honor each other's roles is very important. Yeah,
and that's also goes right back to what you said earlier. Everyone is different. What I'm hearing from what you're saying, if as an example, there is going to be a rollout of a new change within an organization, you need to respect the character types within the business.
Mm-hmm.
Allow for a bit of and expect a bit of hot-headed discussion. Mm-hmm. Allow people also to take time away, let them shout off in the nature or maybe down the pub or to the family or whatever it is in the car park or whatever, and then come back the next day, reinform, and then am I hearing then from you to say, okay, with good guidance, with some critical discussion, with some, and I meant that not in a negative manner, but from the critical thinking, from an objective perspective, to then guide through and say, okay, well, what does this mean to you as an individual? How can we help this situation for you? This is what we think. What do you feel? Do you see the same? What else do we need to understand? Yep. Is that roughly a summary of the process?
I think that's great. Yeah. The ability for an organization, large or small, to be responsive, right? To be intelligent, to take the microcosm of the human brain when the alarms are going off and the amygdala and the old reptilian brain is taking over and the fight, flight, and freeze behavior patterns start to become natural. Yeah. The prefrontal cortex, right? The higher cognitive functioning, the ability to envision beyond the given data, to be creative in solution setting, to find new ways beyond what's happened in the past. An organization needs to think with a higher mind, to take a higher road. And oftentimes what appears to be an impasse between us is this higher road that neither one of us has walked before. And so we have to get beyond our emotions, honor our emotions, recognize that other people have different kinds of emotions, different ways of processing, and not come together in dissonance, but to sort of keep enough space when there is high intensity emotions to let people do what they're doing, let them work their way out until they're calm enough that we can synchronize and work together, to work as a team, because we do have a superordinate goal of kicking butt together.
Exactly.
It's fun. It's fun to find a way with the multitude of personality types that are all necessary, right? I mean, when we launched people to the moon and they walked around and picked up rocks and brought them back, it wasn't just the science and engineering types that got us there. It was all types of human beings working together. And it's not an easy thing to do, and yet I think that's the best thing that humans can do.
That's a perfect analogy for another question I wanted to ask was, Part of the hurdle with fear, of the challenge of addressing fear, we come from a background of a sport within skydiving where visualization is used,
Yeah.
quite well and very successfully. The moonshot is a classic business goal-setting phrase. You've just referred to landing on the moon, and no one knew really what that could be like at first. But at some point, they had to visualize that so that the what was a technological challenge became knowledge, and therefore fear for the engineering, fear for the astronauts themselves, fear for the whole support systems was then satisfied effectively. And what I mean by satisfied is that they became fully aware what are the real risks.
Yep.
It's dangerous on the moon, right?
But it's not, the danger is not infinite, right? In any given situation, there's not an infinite number of variables that you have to contend with. You're not going to be dealing with lava balls getting launched through the sky at you while you're walking around on the moon. That's okay, one less thing. What about alien creatures? No, not on the moon. It's a dead rock. Okay, what else can I set my mind at ease and focus in on the real risk? What are these specific things? And I might have to go to great lengths to mitigate those things, to create safety protocols and objects, that I'm taking with me. They're going to create a higher level of safety. But I have to bring in that's very special kind of sanity, which comes from isolating variables and addressing them one by one. And that's not fear-based thinking, right? It might be fear that raised the red flag, that I feel an emotional thing. Okay, well, why do you feel the emotional thing? Let's get specific. Let's isolate and control those variables.
Question with, there's a huge field of thought about positive thinking, okay? Utilization of affirmation, self-talk, a whole bunch of tools that you're far more of an expert than what I could ever be. When that's applied to tackling fear, at what point can that actually be dangerous? At what point can that be delusional? At what point can that provide the wrong level of confidence? How is that managed? How would you suggest that that's looked into?
I find that as long as I'm in touch with my gut, with my physical sensations in my body, if I keep constructing a visualization, an elaborate visualization in which I do succeed, right? A plausible success story about a possible future. As long as I can see through that step by step without getting the crunch in my body, well, chances are this is a sane possibility. It may not be an easy possibility. It might require effort and steps and training and behavior, beyond what I've done in the past, and elements of tools that I don't have yet, right? But if I can go through that process without getting the crunch, the physical crunch, and people say, well, yeah, but my gut doesn't seem to work. I've tried, and I am scared all the time about every possibility. Whenever I try to envision dangerous things, physical or business-wise, whatever, my conclusion is just go work for somebody else. It's too scary to be an entrepreneur. Go, don't base jump off of a cliff because I can't picture myself doing it successfully. And I say, well, you got to start from a basic story of happiness. You have to start from a basic life belief system, where you get up in the morning and you're thankful and you're happy, and that happiness, that background of normal happy, right, creates a system where your contrasts show up. But if somebody is always negative, if they're always the yeah but person, here's why we can't, here's why we shouldn't try. If that's the role that you play, it's habituating, right? It becomes a normal negative. And now you're right, your emotional guidance system will be a failure. It's not going to work because if you're suffering from miserable bastard syndrome, how do you know when you're, everything's a catastrophe for you?
How do you get over that? How does somebody flip that that bridge from
Yeah.
from being from I'll give you one example. I've never forgotten this. I was probably about 17, 18 years old, and I worked for an old diesel engine company in the West Country in the UK. No engineering company similar to it for many, many miles. A guy had worked there for probably 30, 40 years, all of his life. The department he worked in was called heat treatment. It was an engineering area, highly specialist, metallurgist, skills off the scales for what was required there, but lived in the area and had loved the job with a passion. Decision, okay, we're outsourcing.
Yep.
So suddenly the guy's 55, 58. I walked in, saw the guy literally crying.
Yeah.
And heartbroken, everything else. And he was a very pessimistic figure to be around for the rest of my duration whilst I was there around him. Question to you, in that situation, because there's also maybe the difference between fear and reality, right? How through fear can you address that kind of mentality? How through fear can you, or the processes of managing fear, can you actually tackle such very realistic career realities for many individuals, and indeed entrepreneurs that, business doesn't work out, so on the plan B? How would you suggest someone looks into that?
Well, I think the first step is acceptance, right? To accept the truth of what has occurred, right? And that doesn't mean that you're accepting fate beyond this point. From this point moving forward, now I've got control, right? And my response is changing my future. And this is where the positive thinking, if you will, takes on, right? You can change the way you feel about the past, sure, but if you don't accept it, you're not going to, I feel great about the fact that I went bankrupt. I'm just going to repeat that in my head until I feel great about it. Well, that's called bullshitting yourself. And you won't be able to swallow that pill no matter how many times you say it. So you might as well just accept how you really feel, right? And not hate yourself for it, and bring in forgiveness. Right. And so there has to be first that acceptance of the quote reality of what occurred, and then the forgiveness of the fact that there was certain matters that were beyond my control.
Yeah, exactly.
I did what I could do. Maybe I could have done better, and maybe I will do better now that I have this knowledge, this contrast-based learning, right? Yeah. And so I'm going to therefore launch a new vision, but I'm not going to assign an expectation of negativity just because the past has some failures in it, right? You got to have a sort of a short memory of your past failures if you're going to be a success in high risk environments.
Yeah,
you have to be. Some would call it delusional, but you have to believe that the effect of your positive attitude is greater than anything else. There needs to be action. Yeah, absolutely. There needs
one question there, Brian.
Yes,
from your own personal experience, because your background within skydiving, I'm looking at a rigger's machine, a sewing machine behind you. That for people who are not,
there's another one here.
Oh yeah.
For
people who are not aware of what that is, that's
I build parachutes.
It's equipment that is done to the highest safety standards.
Yep.
Which of course Brian needs to look in the mirror at the end of every stitch, my guess, to understand this is a stitch that's going to hold
somebody's life. It's quite literally someone's life.
How do you overcome that fear of that level of responsibility that you have
I don't
How,
dwell.
how,
I don't dwell on the fear aspect. I notice it when if it comes in a flash moment of awareness
yeah,
that I care. That's instead of right, I wear that as this is great. I actually care about the outcome of my efforts.
yeah,
I'm going to leave that to reinvest my attention in the details, my ability to step back and examine what I've done as if someone else is doing the inspecting, as if someone else did the work, to step back, and if I don't like what I see, I'm just going to redo it
right,
until it's right. And it's not about wanting to be done so that I can leave. I want to do a job well.
yeah,
And in this case, it's my meaning underneath all of it that motivates me. And none of this is about fear. If I dwell on the thoughts of the negative visualization of what would happen if I failed, right? What if I did a bad job and somebody died, right? Because
yeah,
it's a real
yeah,
possibility for somebody who doesn't have as high a level of care as I do.
right,
But I actually love skydivers.
yeah.
And
They
for
cross.
me, that love becomes an investment in my attention in the detail work.
Yeah, yeah,
And my ego sort of dissolves from the situation. And I just say, let's just do the job right. If it takes me, I mean, there's times where I actually am backstepping, unpicking stitches for, 5 or 6 hours in the process of building one parachute. I'm going backward to
mm,
go forward. And
right,
what's the difference? In the end is a product that I'm proud of, a product that I will see 10 or in some cases 20 years down the road. I've got parachutes that I still jump that I made 20 years ago where I inspect them again. I go, no, they're fine. And I'll keep on jumping them. It feels good.
yeah,
And for me, it's not an ego thing and it's not a fear driven thing. It's the positive spin on pride. It's the feeling good about being part of something that is really special.
right. And there's massive elements within that personal story there
Yep.
that help someone take their own approach to addressing a fear type situation or a challenge type situation, how they personally bring that care, that accountability, that responsibility, that awareness, those skills, all of that in together. So, well, hang on, I've got such a big toolkit here
Mm.
that it will just come good, right? And I think that's also what I'm hearing from the process side.
Yeah.
But Brian, I'm very conscious of time,
Mm.
and just to ask a few other quick questions, if you don't mind. But you've got one of the most, if not the most impressive. In fact, I say you are the go-to parachute safety guy, full stop, period. Online, there's no one else out there that is doing such a good job as what you do for
That's awesome.
for that. And you're supporting various media sources out there, and I would recommend anyone and everyone not just to listen to it because it's fascinating and informative, but I think that care and that passion that you've just described also comes through in your explanations, the depth of your knowledge. And also what I really appreciate about it is when you're able to bring so many different angles and perspectives through your experience of what somebody else with a slightly less experience, with slightly more experience, might be thinking, what they also need to be considering. From that, all those great skills you also bring to the public speaking world, yeah? And you're out there, also a fantastic speech that I've been sharing out on social media and continue to do that again, which is very great for companies out there. From your perspective, what key areas do you think you would like to leave for an entrepreneur, for a large organization, to say, hey, here's what I'm about, here's maybe what I can offer, and here's where to find me?
Yeah.
How would you approach that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing is that people decide on an inspiration-based thought process. an inspiration-based career, in the end, you'll have fewer regrets, won't you?
Yeah.
And to me, that's the worst fail that we have available to us. That if we look back on our lives and regret that we didn't take chances on the ideas that mattered to us personally. Is it the idea that's going to change the world and save the world? I don't know. That's up to you. But the one that you assign meaning to is the one that you're going to have the most bravery for once you begin the process of bearing the soft white underbelly of your caring, right? But
Yeah.
if you keep it hidden, right? If you keep quiet about these ideas and you don't move forward into that risky zone that may require, a little, finagling and modifying and learning, right? Expansion of your own skill set. It is possible that you're going to run into all kinds of apparent failures along the way. But what are you here for, right? Are you here to just be born and live and then die and hopefully pass on something to the future generation if you happen to breed? Or are you here to create meaning through your own belief systems and move forward with it, despite the fact that there is danger for you? That, to me, this is the whole point of all of this stuff, whether it is dealing with fear in a physical way or otherwise, to choose courage for a reason. For me,
I mean, going back to the moon reference earlier. I mean, one of the best examples most people can see today is, you've got the automotive sector stuck in the older internal combustion engine, and you've got Tesla reaping the market through new innovative ideas, and now the automotive sector are now taking that on. So they can learn an awful lot there from you. That's for sure. Brian, we'll make sure that loads and loads of links are put out there, and so people can contact you. And massive thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, well, you're welcome to check out. We've got a video channel on YouTube under my name, Brian Germain. We've got a really neat website, Adventure Wisdom, which for those that are learning to skydive will find that's very interesting. Transcendingfear.com has a lot of good stuff if you're looking to move forward into those dark and scary zones in your life to create light, right? To create expansion, to create a larger version of you. It's worthwhile. It's worth the journey. And I invite all of our viewers here to step it up, to step up your courage, to nurture a larger version of you.
Definitely.
So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Brian. Really appreciate it. It'd be of big value. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Fly so high, free as an angel. I can do anything. Free as an angel. And I can do anything.